What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing another mock draft Monday with a 2-round no trades mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube at this point. Below my face is my board. Below that are all the other ways to get connected and take advantage of being part of the show. So feel free to give our sponsors a good little shout, and then feel free to follow me over at those great locations. Everything's going to be in the description too, so feel free to check it out there. Let's get right into this. This is going to be a fun one. I might have a one little trade exception because naturally one of these top two teams are going to trade out because one of them is getting Marvin Harrison. Another one's probably going to trade with a team that goes after a quarterback. So do with that as you may. But starting off with the number one overall selection, we have the Chicago Bears. And yes, I traded out of this spot last week just to change things up a little bit because I think the smartest move is to go after Maserati Marv. And to be honest, I'm going to go back to the way I think is best. It's fun to be able to, that's why I do this every week, to be able to, trade out and try new things. But this is a live mock draft, so we'll see how the rest of the pieces fall. I'm not going to waste your time. Marvin Harrison Jr. arguably is better than Caleb Williams, but really depends on what you're going for. If the Bears are here at number 4 at the end of the year, I definitely see a case for Caleb being this selection. However, I'm going to go after Maserati Marv for the time being just because the drop-off is significant. A lot of people are saying that, Malik Neighbors is so close to Maserati Marv that, you could end up moving back and getting him. To be fair, that's what I did with the Bears last week and definitely didn't feel like that. So let's get that clear. But I don't think that there's really a similarity between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, not because Malik Neighbors is not good. That's not even true remotely. He's a great wide receiver. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a different style wide receiver. He's a true X wide receiver. He's somebody you can rely on in every single situation. And honestly, he has that lineage, and he's a freaking beast. That's the bottom line. He's going to get shit done. And it doesn't matter what situation you're in. You're in the 2-minute drill. You're up by 30. He is still going to be a reliable target and someone that you want to target at that point in time. You want to throw it to him 30 yards deep. You want to throw it to him behind the line of scrimmage. It's going to work out. So, just getting a reliable option for Justin or whoever the quarterback may be is going to be a good option because who knows? Drake Maye is going to be there at pick number 4. Wouldn't be the worst thing on planet Earth to pair up Marvin with him rather than going Caleb and trying to fix something else. But at pick number 2, obviously this would have been my selection for Marvin Harrison Jr. if he were here. For that reason, this is my one little caveat in my no trades mock drafts. When there isn't an obvious guy who is worth it at this point, and you could say Olu Fashanu is a great choice here because you can get out of that contract and, you could end up having Paris Johnson continue staying at right tackle. I don't really think you got Paris Johnson to be a right tackle. You wouldn't have traded back up and taken him over the better right tackle if that was your long-term plan. Doesn't make sense to me. So with that in mind, I will be trading this. And the thing is, it's no longer just the Giants that are within range. We have a lot of teams that are within striking distance of this pick. I already know it's going to piss off my Cardinals fans. Well, a couple in particular, because I always like to trade out with the Cardinals if Marvin Harrison Jr. is not here. However, looking at the teams that are available for Caleb Williams, some people might say, oh, just do a 1-pick trade down. Not going to happen. Looking at it, I do think Washington has their guy. I do believe that, I would hope that Washington would perform better with Sam Howell than they do. But you see what the potential of Sam Howell is. So I think it's worth continuing to sticking in there and developing. I'm going to do something I haven't done in a long while, and I think that's going to be trading with the Buccaneers because this is a team that is still loaded with talent, and they're coming up on their final years of being very effective as those players. And I'm kind of tired of drafting the 3rd or 4th best quarterback. This is a great range to move back and still get someone of the talent level of Jerzon Johnny Newton or even Kool-Aid McKinstry. So for me, I'm still in the striking range of where I want to go with the Cardinals, even at this selection. And it's been so long since I've been able to have a Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick in the top 5 that it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to be able to get a star player for the Buccaneers. So for this, obviously, it would cost at least multiple firsts. You know, I feel like the Buccaneers might be willing because of the fact they have a ton of draft capital, or they have a ton of aging capital, that they would probably want to go a third and then a second next year. Like this would be probably the more appreciated structure. That might be the best move for the team. Maybe toss in a 2026 second round pick, right? Because this is roughly, I would say it's about half of what the value was for 1 to 9, like based on the fact that it's a 400-point drop to go from 1 to 2. And then it's, I think, a 200 point, so times 2, 400. So it's 800-point drop. There is a significant amount of draft capital difference between this and the Bears trade. But at the same time, you are getting the best quarterback. So we'll do it that way. We'll do it that way. For the Cardinals fans, Buccaneers fans, I don't think that my pick in the second round is going to entice you as much as drafting the best quarterback, arguably, of all time, in Caleb Williams. So there we go. So Cardinals fans, you get to have even more fun. But thank you, Tampa Bay fans, for watching. That's the bottom line. You guys get to end up snagging Caleb Williams. They're at pick number 2. The fact is you have all the weapons in place to be able to let Caleb cook his first year. And then as time progresses, you will have that cap flexibility with these aging veterans retiring to be able to continue bringing in more weapons. The bottom line is you have your star blindside tackle, and that's going to be kind of key for a quarterback that really, he sometimes gets a little antsy, but in order to create, he needs to be able to have at least somebody he can trust in. And if you can be trustworthy of one of your linemen, that's a really good start. So really big fan of what Caleb Williams can do there for Tampa Bay. Obviously, it was one of the early selections back when Tampa Bay was supposed to be like the number 1 overall pick. At pick number 3, I don't feel like this is going to be a surprise to many. Quarterback's going to move the needle the most. And Drake Maye, even though I do have him there at 17 on my board, it's not like he's actually the 17th best player. Like most drafts, if you're out of the top 10, you're not on a board, you're not that great of a player. I've labeled him as blue chip. Blue chip is not just an instant starter. This is a franchise guy. Like, well, shout out to Marcus, that franchise guy. But like, this is a guy that you're going to want on your roster for 10 plus years. There's a lot of them in this class. And I know I'm higher on a lot of players than most. So, I'll give it that. But, there's just a lot of really damn good talent in this class. I would not be surprised if some of these kids are like, you know what? We're going to go back. 2025 class, I just dropped a video on it, so feel free to watch my first ever mock draft on it. Took me 9 hours to compile all those slides, so feel free to show a little bit of love there. But like that class is not even close to the talent level of this one. And that includes with me having a Marius Mims return, which I will be doing in this as well. I just don't think he comes out. Like he's going to be a top 15 pick in this, or he's going to be a top 5 pick in the next year's draft. There's not even one tackle besides Kelvin Banks, who's a left tackle, that remotely comes close to the talent level of Marius Mims. But regardless, this class is absolutely stacked. Drake Maye does have issues. I don't know why people are acting like Caleb and Drake both don't have issues. A lot of people are now more on the fact that Caleb has issues because he's been hyped up as the best guy of all time. But I think people just have a lot of fatigue about talking about how damn good Caleb is. And when they see Drake Maye succeeding, they're like, oh my God, look at this. It's the best thing since sliced bread. I get that. I do. And like, it happens to me too. I see a quarterback, or I see, for example, like some interior defensive linemen doing really well. I end up forgetting about the guys who I think are really damn good, like Ruggiero, who's ending up moving up on my board. Like there are some players that you just get fatigued on. And I think that's the case here with Caleb versus Drake. But Drake Maye is still a spectacular quarterback. He can make all the throws on the field. His consistency is improved, but he still does make some mistakes here and there, as most humans do. But again, he's not flawless. None of these players are flawless. Maybe Maserati Marv might be the closest to flawless that you can find. But this is still a massive upgrade for the Patriots. Pick number 4 for the Chicago Bears. We got Maserati Marv. It's really down to Olu Fashanu and Brock Bowers. The fact that I can't do a trade anymore, because again, I had one little exception here. It does make me lean towards going after offensive tackle here. I like Braxton Jones, but I would prefer to go after the higher upside. Joe Alt, not really a bad option either, man. Honestly, you can get either one and be extremely happy. I'll go for a Joe Alt in this instance just because I do think he handles power a little bit better. And for the most part, I always go after Olu Fashanu. So it's just a little bit of a change up. You can't really go wrong with either of these players. They're both absolutely amazing offensive linemen. At pick number 5 for the Commanders, it's Olu Fashanu or Brock Bowers. And I don't think that the debate is as one-sided as one might see when you see Brock Bowers here. The one thing I will say is that the Commanders, I feel, are more desperate for a right tackle than a left. That being said, their whole entire line has been absolute butt cheeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go both. But looking at the draft capital we have 2 early second-round picks. I do think, especially if there's a trade scenario, it is possible to be able to move up with these to be able to secure a right tackle. Like, let's just say Amarius Mims comes out. I would not be surprised if they utilize both of these picks to end up moving up into the first, and then maybe snagging an extra third round pick, right? So they keep the same quantity but increase the quality. There are reasons to go after that. Brock Bowers, on the other hand, one, he's an elite level blocker. So I do see him as an actual addition to the overall blocking of the team. But you just can't find a Brock Bowers. You can't sign a Brock Bowers. You can probably sign an Olu Fashanu if they end up coming available. I don't see superstars, especially superstar tight ends, going on the market very often. Most of the time you have to trade a second round pick for them on their last year of their deal, or a first round pick for a superstar. This is somebody that is going to give a very reliable option in a very tough division. To be fair, not many good linebackers in the division. So you can feast over the middle. I really want to go offensive tackle for him for sure, but I'm going to opt for Brock Bowers. At pick number 6, it is down to quarterback and right tackle for me for the New York Giants. A lot of people want to claim that Malik Neighbors should be the pick. I'm not going to be one of those. I do think this wide receiver class is deep enough, and the needs at both offensive tackle as well as quarterback are quite apparent. So with this selection, I'm going to look primarily at Bo Nix. There's a lot of hate on Bo Nix. There's a lot of it. And, to be fair, understandably so, he is not a 20-year-old quarterback. He's 23, which is not that old. I don't know why people think it's that old. Most of the people who are probably saying he's old are older than him. And if they're not, then kind of explains it. So 23 years old is not old for a quarterback. He still has a 15-year NFL lifespan, which is really damn good. Not many quarterbacks even get the pleasure of being able to live out that long in the NFL. So he's mobile. So he fits exactly the system you're running. He's essentially Daniel Jones, but better. And, Tommy DeVito has been having a great run. But do y'all really think that he genuinely is the quarterback of the future? He's made some really good throws, but hell, Duck Hodges was able to do some great shit for us Steelers fans, right? Like, he's been able to do some good stuff. We all knew Duck Hodges wasn't going to be the answer. And I don't think y'all do. I think y'all don't believe that either. And I want y'all to have a little bit of patience because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. And I think you'll like it quite a bit. So we're going to go with Bo Nix here. It's going to move the needle the most. And you're going to see what I do because I think you'll like it. At pick number 7, I might just go Olu Fashanu here and just say screw it. Because Olu shouldn't be falling. Of course, with trades, I would have probably traded back with New York. Probably would have done a New York to New York trade just so Olu Fashanu could come off the board, or New York to Tennessee. So with that being said, I don't feel like the Cardinals can give up on this option. The talent level is too high. And looking at the other options, the cornerback class does drop off, but Garrett Williams has been performing better, which is great. And we can always get another corner in the next round. The corner class is not going to be as good, but that's just naturally what you give up. Defensive interior is going to be pretty damn solid at that next round spot. I've actually been regrading all the defensive interior players, and there's some really good ones. Some players who have dropped off, but that's another conversation for another day. One thing I can guarantee you is there's not going to be someone remotely close to the talent level of Olu Fashanu. So we are going to actually draft a guy who I would have debated drafting at number 2. Kind of sounds like a win to me. At pick number 8, would have been great to get Olu Fashanu, but for me, this is an obvious pick here. It is Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State. You could, of course, go JC Latham. I'm not going to complain. You can go either right tackle and be very happy. And to be honest, the next one is going to be taken most likely at pick number 10. It is what it is. But Talise, to me, especially after rebounding versus Oregon and allowing 0 pressures this past week, that gave me a lot more confidence in him. He had some stumbles along the way, had a 3-pressure game and a 4-pressure game this year, which does scare me. But the fact is, I was really hoping he would learn from his mistakes and rebound. In that Oregon game, I'm telling you, I started out by looking at the pressure numbers for the Oregon players, and I'm forgetting one of the Oregon players had 5 pressures, and I was like, oh, no. It's another one. It's another one of these games. I was really worried that I had to have to end up kicking him off my blue chip list and saying this guy just needs a lot more development than I initially gave him credit for. That's not the case. He ended up rebounding. And to me, that just like makes me truly smile. So it's good to see that he's able to do that. He's one of the most talented players that I have ever seen. Athletically speaking, this guy moves like he's 250 pounds, but he is upwards of 330. So I actually want to double check. How much does Talise weigh? So 334. He looks 334. He moves like he's 250. And he has the power of 360. So you can't go wrong. Talise or JC Latham, they're both going to be incredible. Talise has a little bit more of a learning curve, but a much higher ceiling just because I've never seen an athlete like him. For the Chargers, God forbid, somehow, some way, the Chargers are here. I just don't want to talk about it. Looking at the options available, Jerzon Newton's a great one, but for me, getting a true boundary corner to pair up with Asante Samuel actually might be your best bang for your buck. So let's go Kool-Aid McKinstry here. That corner 2 spot is wide open, and honestly, I'd be fine with Kool-Aid McKinstry assuming a corner 1 role on this team. Just spectacular player, super consistent. He let up, this past week, he let up, I think, 46 yards. And I think he might have let up a touchdown as well. But, Terrion Arnold had a better week than Kool-Aid. At the same time, Kool-Aid's playing the best receiver. So it is what it is. But, I give some players some mulligans. 42 yards. I mean, the only reason why I'm criticizing him for 42 yards is because I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is a blue chip player. But still spectacular overall. A much needed addition to the secondary. At pick number 10, honestly, Kool-Aid might have been my selection here for the Titans, but that O-line does need some help for the long run. Again, Amarius Mims is returning. I would have probably taken Amarius Mims. I would debate it with Talise. I would. In definitely a debate with JC Latham, but I'm going to have Amarius return. I just think that he should be a top 5 pick. Now, he could end up being, the Packers pick if I don't have him return. But, do you trust the Packers to do the right thing? I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see if he ends up coming out. And if he ends up announcing it by the time that I drop this, awesome. Like, that's even better. But I'd rather give a more accurate depiction of what I think is going to happen. And when you see someone who should be a top 3 or 5 pick, naturally they should be targeting that top 3 or 5. At pick number 11 for the Raiders, this is going to be a QB. And y'all are talking about how you don't think AP is going to be the coach next year. And, I kind of hope he is. I do. Jaden Daniels is just, I love that instant connection. Now, he will provide a new spark and something that y'all haven't had, regardless of whether AP is your coach. But it would be cool to kind of have Jaden Daniels pair back up with his original coach at ASU. So I'm going to go Jaden Daniels here. I'm going to go above Michael Penix. Jaden Daniels has just been phenomenal in both the ground and the air this year. And he's improved exponentially, which is a great sign. It's not just the offensive system. And yeah, Malik Neighbors makes it possible to where you can dump it and then he ends up running for a touchdown. There is that aspect to it too. But Jaden Daniels is one of those guys, when he's out of the pocket, genuinely, he's one of the scariest people as a defender to see because he is lightning fast and he is very smart. So got to give him credit. I think he'd be a massive addition for the Raiders. And honestly, he's bigger than I thought he was. I thought he'd be around 200 pounds. I think he's upwards of like 210 to 220. Like, we'll pop it up here. Yeah, he's 210. I thought he was genuinely 200 pounds. So he does at least have some size to him too. So that puts away a little bit of one of my criticisms of him. So overall, great player. Honestly, hope AP can end up rebounding and being the coach that they want for the future. Pick number 12 for the New Orleans Saints. I am going to very gladly choose Michael Penix Jr. here. I want to see, well, one, Derek Carr, to me, is just not the answer. His red zone woes have just been continuously an issue. But more importantly, I want Jameis Winston to go to a new environment. I know he's Mr. Eat His W's, loves the Bayou. Like, I really hope that this guy can do something there. But I really want him to go to an organization like the Rams where, he can pick up with a lot of really good weapons and learn from Stafford, who's an actually really good quarterback. No disrespect to Derek Carr, but he's not a Matt Stafford. And I want him to have a new start because I just don't think he's going to work in New Orleans the way that he wants to work. I want to see some new scenery. Deep down, I'm a little bit biased. I just genuinely want Jameis Winston to succeed. And to be fair, the first name that popped up in the corner of my eye the first logo was that Rams logo. But, for me, I would love to see him genuinely take over a Super Bowl winning franchise. And technically, the Saints have done it, but not within very recent memory. While the Rams still have some key pieces that might be there if he ends up taking the reins. At pick number 13 for the Packers, this is tough because I said Amarius Mims is returning. I could make this very easy on myself and just say, oh, we'll go Amarius Mims here. I can make it very easy on myself, but I'm not going to because I already said he's going to return. So I'm not going to double cross myself there. So the next best options are Cooper DeJean, Keon Coleman, and Jerzon Johnny Newton. So getting Jerzon Newton, adding him to what you already have as a studded defensive interior is going to be another way to help out Jordan Love on the other side, being able to, trust in the defense when he ends up making a mistake. Like you can trust that the defense will get the ball back for you when you have Kenny Clark, forgetting the kid from Georgia that you got in the first round, Devontae Wyatt, and Jerzon Johnny Newton. Like that is going to be able to stuff runs. They're going to rush the passer. There's just an overall confidence that you could have. But I want to look at round number 2 because you have 2 picks there. Who's going to be there? There's going to be maybe Rukaroro. There's going to be probably not Tavondre Sweat because I really like Tavondre Sweat, but maybe even Leonard Taylor. And you could also look at some other defensive interior guys like Chris Jenkins could possibly be there. And, McKinley Jackson's a freak. There's going to be somebody there on defensive interior. They're not going to be as good as Jerzon Newton. But when you look at the safety core, who's going to be there in round number 2? Maybe Cam Kinchens and Newman could be there. But I'm trying my best to get them off the board before your pick. I don't think you're going to find somebody remotely close to the overall talent level of Cooper DeJean. Therefore, I think that he's the best move. I talked about Keon Coleman as well, though, because I think a wide receiver 1 that could be a true jump ball threat might be what you should be looking for. And I'm not going to do it this time, but maybe in tomorrow's trades mock draft, I will exercise that option because I would love to hear what y'all think about a Keon Coleman pick to the Packers. It's very unlikely because y'all never take, first round offensive players, especially receivers, but it might be a new day. But we're going to go Cooper DeJean here, going back to Iowa for that first round pick. Cooper DeJean, he's going to be an elite level safety. If he ends up sticking at corner, that's still extremely valuable as well. Going to have instant impact as a returner. Overall, just going to be a day 1 impact on a team that, I feel like they're 80% of the way there, and that last 20% could really be what shifts things up, and Cooper DeJean might be one of the biggest needle movers that you can have. At pick number 14 for the Rams, quarterback is an underrated position to target. However, I'm going to have Quinn Ewers probably return or transfer. Carson Beck's going to return. J.J. McCarthy's going to come out, but he ain't worth it. Shadur Sanders definitely going to return. Jalen Milroe going to return. Like, there's just nothing. Ain't nothing. Ain't nothing worth it. So for the Rams, I want to get my best bang for the buck. The wide receiver, edge class, and then Jerzon Newton is going to be where you find the most here. And For me, I feel like getting an identity on defense is kind of crucial for a team that will probably be losing their identity on defense. So for me, I personally would look at potentially a Jared Verse in this situation or a Jerzon Newton. I do think the edge rushers in round 2 are significantly worse than my true blue chip players, but Jerzon Newton needs to come off the board at some point, and this is probably the point to go after it. So we are going to be going Jerzon Johnny Newton here. I ended up getting Leonard Taylor in my last mock draft for the Rams, but this time I want to be able to lock in an elite level with high upside player in Jerzon Newton. At pick number 15 for the Cincinnati Bengals. For me, this would have been a good spot for Jerzon Johnny Newton. I do think a top-tier defensive interior would be a smart move. But when Keon Coleman's on the board, I'm going to save all the money from T. Higgins that I can and select the superstar out of Florida State. At pick number 16, this is Malik Neighbors. We're firing very quickly. I don't care who else is on the board. Malik Neighbors is going to be an elite level wide receiver too. Honestly, I don't think he has a route running acumen just yet. He hasn't worked on those intricacies well enough, but he could eventually be the Stephon Diggs replacement because that guy just has a shitty attitude. I don't like Stephon Diggs, just between you and me. I think that he's a crybaby, but his talent makes it worth to keep on that team because he's an amazing player. But when somebody's getting all pissy about losing to arguably one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL by 3 points, people make mistakes. Josh Allen makes mistakes. He's still recovering from a UCL sprain or UCL tear. I don't think people are thinking about that enough either. But Malik Neighbors is a really, really great target. He's definitely going to be an elite level number 2, but he probably could be the long-term answer there over Stephon Diggs. At pick number 17 for the Cardinals, we already got Olu Fashanu because I did not expect for that to happen. At this point, we could look at a star corner or we could look at an edge rusher. Looking at the options that are available, Braylon Trice, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, the top 3 usually. You got Chop Robinson here as well. Chop is someone who I absolutely adore, but I think have I already said that? That was like my last week's phrase. I need to get out of this. I need to have this week's phrase that I say over and over again. But you got Leato Latu here. There's a lot of really enticing options. Our next pick is 34, so we're not going to have another player. Like, if I have Dallas Turner there for the Lions or Braylon Trice, that's probably where I'm going to go. The Eagles are going to go after one. The question is, can you rely on 3 more edge rushers going? Most likely one's going to go here. One could even go right here. I got to go edge rusher. They're going to be flying off the board. So I want to find the best edge rusher on the board. And that's probably going to be Jared Verse. Braylon Trice, he's starting to make a run for the money. Dallas Turner coming off a 10 pressure week versus Auburn. You can't go wrong. All 3 of these guys had over 5 pressures, I think 5, 6, and 10 respectively. Chop had 1 this past week, so it is what it is. But I don't think pressures are the end-all, be-all. It's just always good to see that players are being effective for every single pass rush that they make. Jared Verse is just the best player. I think B.J. Ojulari is the future. Braylon Trice could be the guy you go after because he has defensive interior applications. You probably would be pretty happy with either way. But Jared Verse is 260. He's 14 pounds lighter. I'd be willing to work more with Jared Verse and see, just realistically, I think more people would go with Jared Verse than Braylon Trice. So that is where I am going to rock. Jared Verse, my number 2 edge rusher actually, he's my number 3 edge rusher now. But I do believe that Jared Verse will be the first edge rusher off the board. So it makes sense. Latu is an honorable mention, but I just can't get there yet. At pick number 18 for the Denver Broncos, looking at the wide receivers available, you got Rome Odunze, you got Mecca Ibuka here. The question is, what are you looking for? Rome, it could be that wide receiver 1 mold. Mecca might not be. I do like the idea of going wide receiver for this team, especially since y'all are on a win streak. It's always good to continue arming the offense. But I do think edge rusher could be one that you do target as well, even though the defense is performing really well. So honestly, when you're seeing your leader, your offense continue to age, I think it's best to give them a better and better situation. So I'm looking at Rome and Emeka here primarily for this selection. I could look at a corner, but again, that defense is performing admirably. I'm going to give them another year to do that. Or for this mock draft, I'll give them another year to do that. So of the options that are available, I think Rome's going to be taken before Emeka. And he also, at 6'3", 210 pounds, is slightly more attractive of a build than Emeka. And he's more built to be a boundary receiver than Emeka is. So we're going to be going after Rome Odunze out of Washington. At pick number 19, we're going to be targeting an edge rusher with this selection because I do not trust the quarterbacks. I do not think J.J. McCarthy is worth the number 19 overall selection. I'd be willing to trade back, like especially if a team, let's just say the Eagles really want to move up and select one of these players, or let's just say the Steelers want to move up and select a top tier corner before the Colts get their hands on one. I would be willing to do that and maybe get J.J. McCarthy. But we're not going to do that in this situation. We do have pick number 51, which might end up being that way. I'm going to be targeting Braylon Trice out of Washington. He's ended up turning it back on and just been absolutely dominating the Pac-12. At pick, also, he's 274 pounds, so he fits the exact mold you're looking for, which is a 270-plus edge rusher to replace the mold of Bud Dupree. At pick number 20, this is... I mean, to me, it's fairly easy. I want to go defensive back. Wide receiver, you could go Emeka Egbuka and put him on the outside. It feels like you'd probably be trying to value this. A sleeper pick here would be Xavier Legette. Like having him be a boundary wide receiver too, that'd be nasty. Other positions, I do see defensive interior if the value is right, which it's not. Like if Jer'Zhan Newton were here, I would consider it. I do think defensive back is still a position to target. You look at Nate Wiggins, you look at Kalen King. For me, I mean, deep down, my Steelers homerism really wants to just take Nate Wiggins here so I can get Kalen King. Also, people got pissed that I sent Nate Wiggins to the Steelers and sent Kalen King earlier. So for me, it's a win-win because people think Nate Wiggins is the best corner, which he's not. But he's a good corner. He's a very good corner. Just, I think Kalen King's better. But other positions you can target, I already highlighted that wide receiver position. If there is a star safety here, like Nubin is an option for this team. But I do think with the value of a Nate Wiggins being a massive run supporter as well, I don't think Jalen Jones, I love the fact that Jalen Jones is starting. I need to dig more into the Jalen Jones tape, and Colts fans, including JWAC, feel free to comment on what y'all have seen from your corner play. But I just don't even think that Juju Brents relates talent-wise to Nate Wiggins. I wasn't a huge Juju Brents guy, but Nate Wiggins at 6'2" and it has the run-supporting ability, to me, does fit what you should be, at least in the market for. At pick number 21, this is going to be an edge rusher. Once I got approval from all my Vikings fans, I am very confident that this is the right move for the franchise. You have two top-tier edge rushers, or two athletic edge rushers up for a contract, in Danielle Hunter as well as Marcus Davenport. You look at Latu, you look at Robinson, you look at Turner. Latu just feels like the guy that they would naturally target. So, very lengthy, very athletic, overall just a top-tier producer with great size. Still trying to get there with loving him myself. At pick number 22, we'll end up moving my board down a little bit so y'all get to see a little bit more. We have the Seattle Seahawks. And this is not a team that needs much. It's not. You could end up taking another edge rusher here and, adding a little bit more. Again, Amarius Mims is returning. For those of y'all who didn't hear that earlier, I don't really think there's much for the Seahawks to target. I don't know if you can re-sign Leonard Williams. And if you don't, then defensive interior is worth it. Chris Jenkins is my number 2 defensive interior at the moment. Leonard Taylor has slipped quite a bit. So, not quite a bit, but quite a bit in terms of the overall ranking, not in terms of his place on the board. I do think going after a star safety like Tyler Nubin is just something that I have been absolutely adoring the idea of. Just one of those players that, to me, fits the culture of Seattle. And, with 2 30-plus safeties, I naturally do believe that this kid should be the future at those positions. The Seahawks no-fly zone has kind of relied on top-tier safety play for quite a while now. And for me, I think the value is right. I think the value is right. So I know we can't trade back. Otherwise, I would. I'm going to go Tyler Nubin here. Again, both of the safeties are getting older. I do think it's an area of growth and it's an area of good value. At pick number 23 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, Amarius Mims is returning in this. So please, for the love of God, stop talking about Amarius Mims, Steelers fans. Like, we can do this. We can do this. So for me, this is a really quick run to the podium. It's Kalen King. We need a boundary corner number 2. Levi Wallace. I've seen a tweet talking about how my grandfather had Hitler, and then like, my father had X, and then it's like I have Levi Wallace. I'm not going to go to that degree, but I sure as hell despise Levi Wallace. And Kalen King is significantly better. Obviously pairs up with Joey Porter Jr. as number 2, and it solves a massive need with a great player. Pick number 24 for the Texans. I don't know how the hell Cleveland still has these picks, but it is what it is. Looking at it, I might just go Chop Robinson here. Just the value is so ridiculous to pair him up. I mean, Dallas Turner being able to get paired up with Will Anderson again, that's also ridiculous. Emeka Ibuka, he feels a little bit similar to the body style and overall role of Nico Collins, but you get that instant chemistry. So that's also very valuable. Graham Barton, to be able to play every position of the offensive line wherever you'd like him to, that works as well. Like, there's some really good options here. Defensive interior, I know you getting a guy to plug up the middle is a great option, but for me, I think I kind of want to move more towards bolstering a strength than fixing a weakness, because you do have 2 players that make total sense. Do you want to help CJ Stroud, or do you want to help out that defense? And I think the value of the edge rushers at pick 49 are comparable to the wide receiver options at 49 in terms of the drop off, but you will be having 2 elite edge rushers who have already played together for multiple years on contract, cheap contracts for the next 4 years. I'm going to go Dallas Turner. At pick number 25. So again, no trades. I am thinking about going Cam Kitchens here just because the safety value has really dropped off. Like Rod Moore, he's okay. Like, he had a great end of the game pick. Like, so good for you. But looking at it, I do think Cam Kitchens might be one of the best options. I, however, am going to go opting for the offensive line. We're going to see if Graham Barton sticks at tackle, but ultimately we know he's going to end up filling somewhere on the offensive line, and he's going to do it at a very high level. Unfortunately, that takes him away from the Dallas Cowboys. However, looking at the options available, it is down to Chop Robinson and Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan's going to be the future at left tackle. If you end up seeing Tyron Smith end up actually retiring, this would probably be the panic selection, and it wouldn't be a bad one. Kingsley Suamataia is also a potential option here. Like, it really depends on the timeline of, why am I slipping up on his name again? Tyron Smith. Again, Amarius Mims is returning in this mock draft. So to me, it's down to Chop and him. Chop provides more of the long-term benefit. He is a better player than Jordan Morgan. But Jordan Morgan might be fixing a massive hole versus Chop Robinson is more for the future. For me, it's really up in the air. Yeah, when I'm looking at the guy who might be on my team in 10 years, I know Chop Robinson most likely will, because he's going to get trained up by Micah. I don't trust Sam Williams. Like, simply put, this dude's just had a ton of issues. So for me, I think that's going to be your best bang for your buck. Let's go for Chop Robinson here out of Penn State. Again, it's not a huge need, but it will be. Like, this is something that you should invest in for the long run. Chop needs to get trained up by an elite level player, and who's better than somebody who used to be a Penn State Nittany Lion himself in Micah Parsons. At pick number 27 for the Lions, I took all of the edge rushers I wanted to take, and they deserve to go. So I'm very happy the fact that I'm stuck with a significantly worse edge class now, because I've been saying, like, why the hell are the Eagles able to select a player who should be going in the top 15? They're not anymore. Hallelujah. So For this selection, I'm looking heavily into Emeka Egbuka. I think he could be the longer term option compared to Donovan Peoples-Jones, just being a true boundary wide receiver. He doesn't fit that exact role, but he sure as hell probably could. AD Mitchell's a sleeper option at this pick. You're looking at the corners, and you do have some really, really good choices here. Like Terry and Arnold's coming off a 2 interception, 1 pass breakup, 0 yards allowed game. Like this guy is on the rise, and he's a great player. I would not shame y'all for taking him. I'm not going to take Denzel Burke because, I mean, it's cheap, but Ohio State, I don't want to give y'all some PTSD, and there's some really, really good options besides that. Defensive interior wise, like there are some really good players as well, but I might be willing to wait for McKinley Jackson in round 2 or 3, most likely round 3, just so I can get someone who has unbelievable athleticism at a 330-pound frame. There's just a lot of good options. That's the plus. The question is, what am I going to get in round 2? I know for a fact I'm going to be blessed to get TJ Tampa or Josh Newton at that point. I might have Dwight McLaughlin on the board, who I actually have right here at spot number 21 on my board. There's always that potential risk that you're taking that I might take 6 corners in that next time frame. Wide receiver, I do believe that I might be having someone like Brian Thomas on the board. I mean, you could go after Jermaine Burton absolutely in the next round, but I don't think anybody's going to give you the value of Emeka Egbuka. So we're going to go Emeka and stick him on the boundary. Just continue weaponizing the offense, and Emeka is great after the catch too. Just giving someone who's reliable on the boundary, and he pairs up well with ARSB. Even if ARSB gets hurt, you can stick Emeka now in the slot. There's just a lot of different ways that he complements the team in the majority of scenarios. At pick number 28 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, for me, I've been wanting to go after wide receiver for this team for a long time, and I'm probably going to continue doing so. Looking at the options that are available, I do like the idea of Troy Franklin starting to sneak back up into this range. Obviously, I've never stopped loving Troy. It's just part of it does hurt a little bit when he's had a massive increase in drops compared to the year before, which I think he had like 3% drops, and now he has closer to 10. Xavier Legette is just super special. To me, he's a bigger version of Malik Neighbors, but maybe a little bit worse after the catch. And that's still fine. And that's a role that I think this team should be looking for. After all, that's what Laviska Shenault was supposed to be, was this guy who was essentially a running back with a lot of size. But Xavier Legette's going to be running probably in the 4.3s. This guy can definitely take off the top of a defense. And I think he complements what y'all have very, very well. So hopefully you guys can bring him into the building. He is somebody who's going to be a combine warrior, former tight end as well. Just South Carolina has some very unique dudes. At pick number 29 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, Amarius Mims is returning. Let's get that cleared up. To me, looking at the options available, I do want to go defensive interior or wide receiver here. And Johnny Wilson, with his drops, it's actually technically, even though y'all are criticizing it, it is the lowest of his career. That's not helping my case. So looking at the other options available, because I just don't think he goes in the first round, you got some really, really good options here. T'Vondre Sweat, if you pair him up with Keandre Coburn, can you imagine the amount of meat, that you just have on the interior right there? That's going to be close to almost 700 pounds. I think it actually might be over 700 pounds of dude. And T'Vondre has increased his ability as a pass rusher over the year. To me, you're not going to find somebody with a remotely similar skill set in this class that is comparable to his, especially with the talent level. So I'm going to be going T'Vondre Sweat out of the University of Texas. At pick number 30 for the San Francisco 49ers, I've been going Terrion Arnold for y'all for a while, and I'm very tempted to continue doing so. That being said, with Jordan Morgan here, I think the value is just right to be able to attract him as a potential right tackle option because he's very athletic. I do like their right tackle, Jonah Savagnia, but Jordan Morgan could be the long-term replacement for a 36-year-old Trent Williams as well. So either way, you're going to be getting an instant addition on the offensive line, and that is a massive plus at pick 30. At pick number 31, this is going to be a corner. And looking at the options, Terrion Arnold, great choice. You look at Denzel Burke, great choice. Again, even my boy Dwayne McLaughlin, great choice. I don't have Terrion Arnold listed in my rankings yet, but he'll probably be right here with that Cooper DeJean, Michael Penix territory. Like Terrion Arnold is well worth this selection. Alabama corners have worked before here. We are going to continue having them work in Baltimore. At pick number 32 for the Philadelphia Eagles, wide receiver is not good enough at the moment. Safety with Cam Kitchens doesn't feel like I've taken him before. Y'all definitely don't like that, but I do think it is up in the air. I do think a corner is a potential likely option. Kamari Laster will be running in the 4.2s. You do need, and Marina, I know you'll end up killing me for it, but she's a resident Eagles fan who's very much against corners. I do think this is a very likely option. However, I do think edge rusher is a position this team should go after. And looking at the options in round 2, I do see that there is a drop-off. Now, I love Jonah Ellis. I love Chris Braswell. Even Landon Jackson to a degree. I like Prince Umanmielen. I don't know how many are going to be there at pick 44. And you know why? Because I know that this team has, between itself and pick 44, 2 picks by the Washington Commanders. And they need, at a very minimum, 1 edge rusher. So let's just give a nice middle finger to Washington and take someone who I love to take for him in JT Tuimoloau. He has a 265-pound plus frame that they're looking for there in Philly. And with 2 guys up for contracts that share that similar size, there's a role that will be opening up. Also, you take it away from Washington. So it's a win-win. So that's going to be the video. Stay tuned tomorrow for rounds 2. And actually, I'm so used to the trades mock draft. What am I doing? We're continuing. Wow. Did you see that? I started going into outro mode right there. We're continuing this at pick number 33. Wow. I was like so ready. I was like, all right, rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. I'm like, dude, we're only doing 2 rounds all in one video. I was like, damn, I forgot to mention rounds 2 and 3 at the start of the video. Let's go. Pick number 33. So the Panthers need help. That's the bottom line. They need help. Amari Sims is returning in this. Again, he would have been taken probably 13th overall. I'm going to go Kingsley Suamataia. At this point, that is a very valuable asset on this team because he can play left and right tackle. It's worth taking a shot on. This offensive line is not performing remotely close to the way I thought it would. And you need weapons, but, fixing the offensive line, fixing the trench is exactly what you need to do first. At pick number 34. So, for the Cardinals, we already have Jared Verse, and we also ended up getting Olu Fashanu. Like, defensive interior is the way to go, man. And Chris Jenkins, gonna be the guy to go after. Well worth it. Instant run stuffer, instant addition to the defensive interior. Also, he's actually even played edge rushing reps, which is crazy, but, he is athletic enough to do that too. At pick number 35 for New England. So, I think wide receiver certainly is on the market here. Tackle is as well. And I think that Tyler Guyton could be a very solid developmental offensive tackle for this team. My one issue with Tyler Guyton is, if I'm not mistaken, it didn't list him as a starter this week. He didn't end up starting his final game. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, it's kind of weird. He didn't start. He didn't play the majority of the reps either. Again, obviously, if Amarius Mims were coming out, he'd easily be the selection here. He's not coming out. So, when looking at the options, it's wide receiver and it's tackle. That's where we're at. And, A.D. Mitchell could be a massive addition to this team. But I do think that we have to take a swing on Tyler Guyton. We got to take a swing on him because he is a talented tackle. Oklahoma has plenty of them, but this team is pretty desperate for extra O-line help for the future. I don't want to continue patching it with, veteran dude here for a year who's like kind of dying. He's like on his deathbed. Like, we're just going to continue bringing one guy in at a time. That's not where I want to go. Tyler Guyton does have a ton of potential. It's worth taking a swing on at pick 35. At pick 36, Washington has back-to-back selections based on this order. So I think that the right move is to look at offensive line. Tyler Guyton would have been nice. But you still have some good choices here. You could go Troy Fautanu, who I think is unbelievable as an offensive lineman. He just might end up being interior, which, to be fair, is not a it's not an area that's vacant. Or it is an area that's relatively vacant. You could see him end up being a massive addition there. So I think that will be one of my picks. We're gonna go Troy Fautanu out of Washington. He'll probably end up being interior, but he can play tackle. He just needs a little bit more developing time, and this team luckily has maybe one more year of being able to let that be the case. At pick number 37, we have to go after an edge rusher at some point. And you got Chris Braswell and Jonah Ellis. I'm going to go after Chris Braswell. He has about 10 pounds on Jonah Ellis, and he's even coming off a 6 pressure week. So good job for Chris Braswell. At pick number 38, we got Bo Nix in round number 1. Watch this shit. We're going to get Troy Franklin in round number 2. Instant connection between quarterback and wide receiver. You guys need a wide receiver, and this guy is definitely going to bring the heat. One of the best wide receivers in all of college, and I think he's going to be a great wide receiver in the NFL. You, of course, have that instant chemistry, which is a big plus, and now Bo Nix gets to be able to pair up with someone who he can trust. At pick number 39, we are back, and this is the one trade of the entire No Trades mock draft. We have the Arizona Cardinals. So we have addressed defensive interior, we've addressed edge rusher, and we've addressed offensive tackle. Now is going to be the time to go after a corner, and Kamari Lassiter is going to be the longer-term option in terms of developing. And I think you guys have been very comfortable with the idea of being able to develop your corners. So I think we play the long-term game here. If you want to go short-term, I would go TJ Tampa, but for long-term, Kamari Lassiter is going to be the dude. At pick number 40 for the Green Bay Packers, yes, Cam Kitchens is here. I could have taken him earlier too. Decided not to. Oh, well. Cam Kitchens, that was a risk that we were willing to take, and, it didn't end up panning out for us. It is what it is. However, you do still have some really good tackles on the board that we could take. Again, Maurice Mims is returning in this. Like Patrick Paul could be someone that you do want to exercise your rights on. I would be looking at defensive interior here, though. Like, you do have Ruka Roro on the board, who's a very solid player versus the run. He's on a little bit on the lighter side at 295, but he also is so flexible and versatile. This team does value that. They value that versatility and that explosiveness. Rook looks like he weighs 260 pounds, plays like he's 295, and he's just pure muscle. You don't find many players who have that type of composition. Leonard Taylor has the higher upside, but I think Rook is the better run defender. So for me, I'm going to be going after somebody who I believe in just a little bit more. At pick number 41 for the Los Angeles Chargers, I think Rook would have been the prime option for me to select for him, but we had Kool-Aid McKinstry in the first round. For me at this point, I'm going to be going Leonard Taylor to have the pass rushing upside. This defensive interior needs the best player available, and Leonard Taylor might just be that. At pick number 42 for the Tennessee Titans, we ended up selecting, I think, J.C. Latham in round number 1, and we did. So with this round number 2 selection, we're going to be targeting... Cam Kitchens is so good, but you do need a corner number 2. We're going TJ Tampa here. Instant impact out of Iowa State. They actually have another corner who's really talented as well, who I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I think he isn't even eligible for this draft. But TJ Tampa is going to create... he's going to fill a void with a lot of day 1 talent, and for me, that is worth the pick. At pick number 43 for the Raiders, we selected a quarterback in Jaden Daniels in round number 1. If Josh Newton's here, I find it very hard to argue against going after a top-tier cornerback talent. But Denzel Burke is as well. Forgot about him, honestly, being on the board. But, naturally, I do think Kamari Lassiter is going to get taken before Denzel because Denzel had some slip-ups and Kamari's the higher ceiling. TJ Tampa's the better day 1 player. Denzel Burke's a nice balance of the two. So you can honestly rearrange these in any way you want. But for me, Denzel Burke is going to be the prime option there. Defensive interior is another really good choice, but I think the value matches up. At pick number 44 for the Philadelphia Eagles, in the first round, we selected JT Tuimoloau. You could go Cam Kitchens at this point. I do think a corner is more likely. Kalen Bullock, another really good player. You got also there's a lot of really good players in this class. Like a lot of really good players. I'm going to be very sad when I see some return. Obviously, Amarius Mims would be a great selection. He's returning in this because, again, I know that not all of you are watching every single second. So I want to be able to drop those in there every now and again. I do think a linebacker is going to be your best pick, your best value here, but I just doubt that you'll go that way. So for me, it's down to corner and safety. We are going to be going after a defensive back. And I think Cam Kitchens is the best. But at the same time, I don't know if Howie would select another safety at this point. I do feel like that might be more of a depth pick. When you guys someone like Josh Duden as well as my number 21 player, Dwight McLaughlin, on the board, it'd be very hard to say no. But given the fact that you brought in Kevin Byard, I do think you value safety help, and Cam Kitchens could be your future Kevin Byard. I picked number 45 for the Green Bay Packers again. We selected Ruka Roro as well as Cooper DeJean. And with this selection, I think running back is going to be one of those choices I am looking pretty heavily into. Tackle as well. You know, Javon Foster's coming off a zero pressure week. I doubt that he ends up going in the second round, but his athleticism is very, very good. Kuron is a beast as well. He's coming off of a quad injury, so I doubt that the Packers would take him over developing Rasheed Walker for a year. We could get another wide receiver with drop issues. That'd be, pretty on brand for the team. It's not an easy selection, but I do think the first running back goes in this range. I doubt Jonathan Brooks will be going with his ACL tear. I think he'll end up returning. So for me, Trey Benson ended off better, arguably, than any running back that is draft eligible. And he just had a phenomenal final week. A ton of missed forced tackles, touchdowns, like just great demonstration of vision. And with a team that might not even have Aaron Jones, this is going to be a great contingency plan. Pick number 46 for the Los Angeles Rams. We went after Jerzon Johnny Newton in round number 1. I might go Josh Newton here. I think I've done that before. That feels very familiar, talking about the two Newtons, because they could use a true boundary for the long run. Luckily this team's been performing very, very well. But I could also go Junior Colson, who is a star linebacker for this team. Why am I tripping up? Michigan. So that could be a massive addition here too. There's a lot of good picks. The bottom line, you could go Josh Newton. You could go after Dwight McLaughlin. You could go even after Quinyon Mitchell as 12 pass breakups this year. Like, there's some good choices for this team. I think based on where you are, you're not going to get another shot at a worthy starting defensive back, and you might have a chance at a starting linebacker in the next round. We've already gone after defensive line. There's not going to be an offensive lineman that I truly believe can truly change this team. Therefore, I'm going to be going after Josh Newton and pairing him up with Travius Hodges Tomlinson, his buddy from last year at TCU. At pick number 47 for the Bengals, we ended up going after T. Higgins' replacement, Keon Coleman, in round number 1. With this pick, I might be willing to stretch my wings a little bit and, draft someone like Patrick Paul or Javon Foster. I don't think I have the guts to do it. So looking at the other options available, I might want to stay in Cincinnati and go Dante Corleone. Brandon Dorless, another really good option. Byron Murphy's been phenomenal. And honestly, Byron Murphy's probably the guy who's leading my opinion for who I should take at this pick. But I am going to take Jatavian Sanders. Tight end is a position they need. Jatavian's probably worth an early third. So mid-second feels a little bit high, but at the same time, this class is garbage. So it is reasonable to select him here. So now you got two massive receiving weapons. So that's going to be a big plus for at least in that market. You can save those $25 million that you'd pay T. Higgins and try to invest it into an actual starting quality tackle. At pick 48 for the Buffalo Bills, we've got Malik Neighbors, round number 1. Now, I could look at a linebacker actually for this team, but I'm going to look at the safety core and draft Kalen Bullock, star safety out of USC. This team needs some defensive back help, and this is going to be your best option for that. At pick 49, Texans, I ended up getting after an edge rusher in the first round. I do think Junior Colson would be a great get here, but I don't think Steven Nelson is going to be the longer-term option next to Derek Stingley. So I'm actually going to go not after Max Melton, but after Dwight McLaughlin out of Arkansas. Deep down, I'm praying that he's on here, and I just know, I knew he wasn't. But Dwight McLaughlin, one of the best corners in the country. Nobody talks about him, so that's why I have him slipping quite a bit. But just one of those better players that doesn't get the respect he deserves, and he's going to end up being a steal for you. So Dallas Turner, Dwight McLaughlin, two super studs. You're not necessarily filling needs. It's more of the wants, but the fact is you're getting amazing value at that. Defensive interior, I would say target it in round 3. At pick number 50, we got quarterback in first round for the Saints. With this selection, I'd probably be trying to target the edge rushing group because you still have some very, very good players here. Landon Jackson's the guy who's speaking out to me at 270 pounds at 6'7". He just feels like the guy who have the size, speed, and just overall freakiness that the Saints have been looking for in the past. Other positions I would be willing to look at. You could develop Karan and have him sit for a year or two before trying to replace Trevor Penning. That could be an option. The left tackle out of Yale. I am a big fan of Karan Amajaje. You could look at Javon Foster as well. You know, there are legitimate choices to be made with this pick, but I mean, again, safety. You could draft Javon Bullard and develop him, but I just don't feel like the value's right. I don't. While when you look at the edge rushing class, you don't find many guys like Landon Jackson. I doubt he comes out, but in this draft, he does. Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. At pick 51, this is pretty quick. This is going to be J.J. McCarthy. You need a quarterback upgrade? Let's get a quarterback competition at the very minimum. Somebody who's essentially Desmond Ridder, but possibly even better. At pick number 52 for the Indianapolis Colts, we ended up drafting a defensive back in round 1 in Nate Wiggins. At this pick, what do we do? Defensive interior, I think, could be a smart move. Like Byron Murphy could be the future with Adetomiwa Adebawore. Like he's going to have a little bit more size to him. I would want someone who's more of a run stuffer, but kind of out of luck in terms of that department right now. Other positions to target, you could go after a wide receiver. I think A.D. Mitchell could be that guy who's just excellent value, kind of too good to pass on in this moment. Johnny Wilson, if you want to have a future potential tight end / wide receiver combo, Johnny Wilson used to play against Michael Pittman Jr. So fun fact, when we used to play them, Oaks Christian versus Calabasas, yes, I got to be in the presence of Michael Pittman Jr. as well as Johnny Wilson. That's kind of freaky. Obviously, as a shorter stature man myself, it was quite intimidating. However, this still would be actually quite fun to see enemies become friends. But I'm actually going to go A.D. Mitchell. I think the value is right. We haven't seen enough of an ascension from Alec Pierce, which breaks my heart, but it is what it is. At pick number 53, we got a star edge rusher in round number 1. Was that Laiatu Latu? It was. So with Laiatu Latu selected, at this pick, quarterback would have been great. If I didn't take J.J. McCarthy, probably be the right move. But we're just going to pray. We're just going to pray that Josh Dobbs works out. That's not very assuring, but try my best here. I do think Bucky Irving's going to be what helps your team the most with this selection. I haven't really seen Ray Davis is somebody who's earned my respect. I know that I'm trying to see if there's any other. Jacquez Hunter's a fun one, but I don't really see any other running backs. Marshawn Lloyd has so much potential, but the dude just fumbles 24/7. It really is a shame. But I do think that this team has most of its issues locked down. So I'm going to go after a position that they don't have locked down, and that's running back. Bucky Irving, missed tackle force machine, just kind of a 3-down back, someone you could really rely on. I picked number 54 for the New York Giants. This is the Leonard Williams trade. We have now drafted Troy Franklin as well as Bo Nix, so got that nice little combo there. Again, Amari Mims is returning in this. Could end up trying to draft Blake Fisher, be a right tackle. I just doubt that he'd be better than Evan Neal. So let's look at some other positions. I do think defensive back is, a position you could target. Quinyon Mitchell with 12 pass breakups could be someone who grows and develops beneath. It isn't a bad idea to go after corner again. I know you just went in the first round last year, and I was a big fan of that pick. Wink Martindale, he knows what he's doing with these cornerbacks. And again, with 12 pass breakups, not a bad idea. But I do like the idea of just saying, screw it. let's double it up. Let's get someone who's going to be more of an aggressive catch threat in Johnny Wilson. So that's what we're going to go. We're going to just load up on weapons now. Now you have Jalen Hyatt, Troy Franklin, and Johnny Wilson. That's going to be a pretty damn awesome core. And again, if you continue having issues with Darren Waller, Johnny Wilson could always be another Darren Waller. At pick number 55 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we drafted Kalen King in round number 1. I might just go JPJ in round number 2. Looking at other options that are available, yeah, again, Marius Mims is returning. Don't really see the tackle value, so I do think it actually might be the best choice. We're going to go JPJ back-to-back second rounds. And yeah, so we got JPJ in last year's first round. We're going to get JPJ this year in our last year's second round. And then in this mock draft, we're getting JPJ in this second round. At pick number 56 with the Cleveland Browns. I doubt that Jalen Polk comes out after back-to-back goose eggs on the scoreboard, but it is potentially likely that he does. I think that the best choice here might actually be targeting Brian Thomas. He has been spectacular, 6'4", over 200 pounds, deep threat, good jump catch ability. For me, that's how you're going to move the needle the most if you're trusting Deshaun Watson to be your guy. At pick number 57, we drafted Graham Barton in the first for the Miami Dolphins. With this selection, I could see Xavier Worthy being a potential choice to, sit and develop. Besides him, defensive interior wise, you could draft someone like Brandon Dorlus to be a little bit freaky in terms of his flexibility. But with the injury concerns with Jalen Phillips for the future, I do want to stay actually in Florida and draft Princey Umanmielen. He's just special, powerful, just worth having on your roster. At pick number 58 for the Dallas Cowboys, we have seen them draft now Chop Robinson for the future. And looking at it, you could go Patrick Paul here to have more of a day one impact at left tackle. This is just probably not the team that is looking to address left tackle. So I'm actually going to address linebacker. Edgerrin Cooper popped off to me. He actually looks really damn good. Junior Colson looks great as well. Peyton Wilson's a top 20 player if he doesn't have his actual injury issues. And given the fact that we've had a lot of injury issues in our linebacking core, probably want to avoid that. So it's down to Edgerrin Cooper, who's 230 versus someone who's 250 pounds. I want to get a true Mike linebacker in Junior Colson. At pick number 59 for the Lions. Honestly, another team that's a dark horse for Junior Colson. We ended up drafting Emeka Egbuka in the first round. At this point, I think I might go Quinyon Mitchell here out of Toledo. Just, again, a pass. He's a ball hawk. This team does need some extra help on the boundary. So we're going to go after someone who knows how to go after the ball. At pick number 60 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we ended up targeting Xavier Legette in round number 1. In this selection, I'm debating going Brandon Dorlus here. Just a ton of potential, but I honestly might go after Jonah Ellis for best player available. Just getting some extra edge rotation in there does feel like it could be a solid move. I do know that y'all are talking about potentially going after offensive line. And you know what? Let's go Christian Haynes. He's a top 15 player for me. Again, I have him slip sometimes just because, 1, I forget about him, but 2, not many teams are needing interior offensive linemen that desperately. And Christian Haynes has not been, in terms of pressure-wise, as reliable. But, you're talking about like a 99.5% versus a 99.8%. He's still extremely reliable. Obviously, it's why I have him in my top 15, but not many people trust guards from Connecticut. At pick number 61, we have the Chiefs. And y'all ended up targeting Tavondre Sweat in the first round. Hello. With this selection, I am actually going to look at, again, I think Jalen Polk's going to return, but I didn't designate him for returning in this. I could totally see Jermaine Burton actually being a really good complement in your system. And the fact is I have Jermaine Burton at 31. If I'm talking, all right, bet. If I'm talking about Jalen Polk probably returning, let's just say he returns. I'm going to go after Jermaine Burton here. People don't give him the respect he deserves. He has that deep threat ability, and he is 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. Like, he has a great frame, elite level route runner, great separator. He's probably going to have 4.3 deep speed. And he's been able to prove that, when targeted enough, he ends up putting up big games. He had a 200-yard and 2-touchdown game this year. Like, he's already proven it. And he had a great week this past week as well. At pick number 62 for the San Francisco 49ers, we end up going Jordan Morgan in round 1. With this selection, it does kind of thin out. I would look at Chris Abrams-Drain as a potential viable, versatile DB. I could look at Jonah Ellis here. Could look at another tackle. We're going to be honest. I would not be against getting Karan and developing him for a year. In fact, I think moving Jordan Morgan to right tackle and taking Karan is one of the smartest moves that you can make. So we're going to go after Karan Amajaje. We're drafting 2 offensive tackles, but one of them actually needs a lot more time to develop. One of them is more of a day one impact. So Karan's going to be the future at left. Jordan Morgan's going to be the future at right. Pick number 63, another team that can honestly be looking at some offensive line help. The Ravens went after a corner in round number 1, and that's Terrion Arnold. With this selection, I know a lot of people are just continuing to talk about wide receiver, and they do like to invest a lot into wide receiver. I'm looking at Brandon Dorless here, just being so versatile, that 290-pound build, that it might just be worth taking him and saying, hey, you need to find your own path. He's a spectacular player, super consistent. So we'll test out what Brandon Dorless can do for this team. At pick number 64, and now actually ending off the draft, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. And we drafted a linebacker in the first. With the next selection, what do? We got Cam Kitchens. So we got edge rusher and safety. I think linebacker is probably next. And looking at it, why not get someone who says, I'm like communion. I'm the cracker with the juice. Danny Stetson will most likely return. However, in this instance, I don't think it's up in the air enough to where I say he might not. He's 240 pounds. He's very athletic. He needs a little bit more development before being a bona fide Mike. But this is a guy who very well might end up being a bona fide Mike. So that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your comments down below. See you on the far side.